You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And today I'm very excited by our guest. I've known this man for a long time. For a long time I knew him from afar, and the last number of years I've known him up close. And it's been an absolute delight. Welcome to the program, Dr Harry Marget.
Thank you very much, Julie Coves. Parker Coves, sorry.
Yeah. Parker Coves.
Yes. It's an honour to be here with someone as so accomplished as you are in this field, and it's very much a pleasure of mine to be able to share thoughts and ideas with you in this particular venue.
Well, thank you so much for that, Harry. I really do appreciate it. And one of the reasons why my husband, Charles Coves, and I admire you so much is because, not just because you're a delightful human being, but also because you are a bold and forward thinker, and you've done that in your career. There's been evidence of that in your career. So for those in other states that may not know who you are, can you just give us a very quick summary, and then we'll get more into the guts of things?
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Okay, so I'm Harry Marget. I started in dentistry in 1972. I graduated at the University of Adelaide, and I immediately moved to Victoria. There were three reasons for that. One, Adelaide, South Australia had a very, very heavy influence in the program of fluoridation of water, and so there were already early warning signs that manifestly showed that fluoride was starting to have an impact on the sort of level of workload that dentists were going to do. But that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was that I wanted an opportunity to express myself, not so much just as a dentist, but as a person in the business of dentistry. Because I always believed that the real approach from an early age was to try and make whatever we were doing, whether it was in dentistry or medicine, into a business rather than a cottage industry, which dentistry had become. And thirdly, I decided it was important for me to be able to get into an environment or a situation where I could start presenting these ideas and make them tangible and useful. And to do that, I saw very quickly that most dentists graduating from universities around Australia came out with a very fixed vision. This is what I can do, this is what I'm not allowed to do, and this is what I must never, ever touch. And I couldn't understand that, because there were people who were doing all these things in other areas of correlated medicine, not just dentistry, and I thought, how come they do these things and dentists, as a rule, are not allowed to do them? Then I understood very quickly that it wasn't about do, not do, or couldn't or could not do. It was about hierarchies and how people perceive these hierarchies to be. So I challenged that, as in your words, I decided to be a little bit bold. I decided to challenge that from day one. So the very first thing I did, I looked around Melbourne and I saw that there were essentially only two people doing endodontics. And one of them was only doing it on a limited basis. And then there was another guy doing it called Dr Effie Ehrman, who became a very dear friend of mine. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Most dentists come across endodontics at some stage in their life, seeing patients, and yet there's only one, possibly 1.5 specialists they can refer to. So I immediately booked myself into the Melbourne University to do a master's degree in endodontics. Not exactly the most fulfilling task in the world, and not exactly the most interesting. I mean, if you think about dentistry anyway, Julie, as you know from your wealth of experience, working in an area this big, that's dark and wet and can't be seen and squirming is not exactly fun. Try and reduce it by another 50 centimetres to an endodontic cavity and you understand what we're talking about. Anyway, I stuck it out for 2 years, finally emerging at the other end with a so-called MDSC in endodontics, which I must say I never ever used. I never advertised it, I never boasted about it, I never talked about it. I thought, no, nobody wants to know about that, let it go. But that's when the actual journey began. I started to see things like the world of orthodontics was now being very heavily used. I started contacting people in the United States and in England, etc., and very quickly found out that there was a mini orthodontic course, an edgewise mini program that you could do in London, which was 3 months, and I immediately booked into that. Went over to London in the middle of winter. Not exactly a fun thing to do, Julie, let me say. But I stayed at the Russell Hotel, and I met the doorman at the Russell Hotel. He said, "My God, sir," he said, "you're wearing a T-shirt. It's the 10th of April, sir. It's -4 degrees outside." Anyway, I learned very quickly about English weather. Did the orthodontics course, came back and realised now that what I had to do was to start to build a multiple layered dental practice business. It had to have everything in it, from grassroots dentistry, kids and fissure sealants, all the way through to implants and beyond. And that's when my journey began. At that point in time, I recognised that the one thing I lacked, and these are one of the 6 topics I want to discuss in the next ensuing weeks and months, was communication skills. Communication skills we are not taught at dental school. Lucky for me, I was a little bit of an entrepreneurial sort of type, and I started enrolling in little miniature drama societies around Melbourne. So I joined a couple of little theatres, I joined a couple of stage plays, a university backlights group, and I started getting into a little bit of amateur acting. From there I went to the acting school on St Kilda Road and enrolled in a 10-month program, from where I then graduated into another program called, I'm a little bit tongue-in-cheek to say this, Find Out Who You Really Are. Actually, it was translated into Find Out What Women Really Want, and then it became how to communicate effectively with women, and then it became how to get in touch with your feminine side. I mean, I'm not kidding. It actually reworked itself many times. The end result of that all, Julie, and I'm sure your beautiful husband would love all this sort of stuff, because that's the sort of stuff that Charles professes, and I love listening to him talk about it. It gave me the opportunity to become a better communicator, not only just a better communicator, but also someone who could work this sort of through in a dental practice. Then I realised I had to take more classes in how to talk to staff. These are programs that you run effectively all the time, so I hope I'm not crisscrossing over or standing on any toes there. But that then translated into other programs, and I think between mid to late 70s and about up to 1979, I basically spent most of 3 or 4 months overseas attending communication and didactic training programs and how to talk to people, culminating with me coming up to the United States and fortunately becoming a keynote speaker for a very small group of periodontists in Missouri, who developed what was called the first ever prepaid dental plan. It was actually called capitation dentistry. So I learned very quickly how you got people to come in for dentistry and pay for it incrementally. This was just like a whole hood had been lifted off my head, and when I got back, I started looking around to see if I could build a vehicle that would do that. Now, get to the point. Very quickly, I found there was such a vehicle, and it was called a friendly society. And there were a few of them in Melbourne at that time. Manchester Unity, of course, springs to mind. And what were these people able to do? 3 things. 1, they could legally advertise. Wow, right? 2, they could offer programs for people to come in and get dentistry done as a family, which were cost effective. And 3, they offered other benefits, such as key insurance bonds, superannuation investment products. I knew nothing about that at the time, but very quickly realised that if I could offer patients a bit more than dentistry, this was going to be an attraction. So who is Harry Marget today? Harry Marget is a person who has spent most of his life researching ad hoc connected to and variations of themes connected with the business of dentistry, and that's where my main love and passion arrives.
Wonderful, glorious. I've written so many things down that I want to speak further to you about. First of all, recognizing the need for effective communication skills back in the mid to late 70s, that would have been far earlier than most of the industry or profession recognised it to be needed. But also doing that in a way that was around about. So you were going into these acting groups, etc., to be able to build up that level of competency with communication styles, getting feedback from the people around you, in essence, doing a whole bunch of role playing to get better at it.
Correct. You hit the nail on the head. It was all about role playing. From there, in the early 80s, I was lucky enough to meet a wonderful person who had been researching, of all things, dyslexia. This was a wonderful friend of mine. He's Charles, a very similar name to your husband, actually, Charles. He's also a Charles. I just temporarily forgotten his name. Anyway, we co-authored a book on dyslexia. What happened was this. We started examining children. We had to look at how they walked, how they crawled, how the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the brain started talking about them. Now, what we found was that there was a basic error in programming by the computer up here. And what's the relevance to what you just asked me before? It led me down a very, very long journey into refining and improving communication skills to the point that you could actually reach people who were not receiving the messages that the brain wanted to hear. And I'm not just talking about writing a B as a D and all that sort of thing. This is actually getting to people, teaching them to crawl left hand, right knee, left knee, and then watching the brain suddenly neuroplastically, I should get my dentures fixed, become better communicators and better listeners to that sort of thing. That then plunged me into a 2-year program at the University of Melbourne under a wonderful professor teaching hypnotherapy. And of course, everybody gets this idea of hypnotherapy saying, oh, well, you'll get someone to talk like a chicken. Well, yes, you can do that. But in actual fact, what it did was give me the ability to communicate and passively communicate words and phrases and emotions and ideas to people, both on the stage and in theatre, but also in the surgery, by getting them to visualise things. And that led me on a totally new path and journey where I was starting to educate other dentists and other staff members on how to learn to communicate thoughts and feelings, not just words, but actually emotions and different aspects. That changed the dynamic in how I presented treatment plans to patients, and also changed the dynamic on how the practice started to evolve. Shortly after that, I started doing some very crazy things. I started a brand new practice from scratch in the city, in Little Collins Street. Everybody said I was mad. I probably was at that stage. I went into business with none other than the notorious Jeffrey Edelston. He had the medical practice next door to me with a grand piano, and I was in the dental practice next door. And let me tell you, Julie, if you wanted to see some of the underside of Melbourne's aristocracy, they all flooded in there. They were all coming and going all day long. It was like watching a scene from one of those gangster movies. You know, it was unbelievable. But that was there. So we did that, and we started a practice from nothing. But what I did do was I had on my hands, I had the ability to advertise and market properly. Of course, you and I are both passionate about marketing, and we love that, and we talk about it a lot. That was the first opportunity I had to do it without stepping on anybody's toes, and that was amazing. We started with nothing, with no patients, and by the end of the year we had 3 dentists working there full-time and gradually building to a huge $3 million practice within 2.5 years, and I think it's still there at this stage. That was one journey, and then another journey was where a lovely lady that I knew called Mrs. Thompson, who lived in Ormond Road, Elwood, her husband, Grantley, was a dentist, and she rang me up sadly one day and said, oh, Harry, Grantley's not being able to work anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. The practice is here. I don't have any income. So I volunteered to go and look after her practice and his patients for a while. I said, look, I don't know how long it'll take till Grantley gets better. But I said, I'll come and look after it and get, make sure you get an income, etc. Anyway, sadly, Grantley passed away, and I kept on running that practice for 3 years and supporting her and giving her an income with that until one day she just said, look, you can have it. But I then very quickly sold it because I started to realise, like I talk about in some of my earlier management lectures, good to have one practice, good to have one set of overheads, good to have a small ego and a large profit. Not a good idea to have lots of ego, lots of practices, and no profit.
That's a very good lesson in itself, because sometimes it is, everything, as Charles talks about, everything comes with benefits and drawbacks. And there are obvious benefits we don't need to state when you can achieve the levels of success where you've got multiple practices and all these things going on, but there's a drawback to that as well.
There is, yeah. So that journey was in itself self-sufficient, and then once I'd cleared all that, I decided, okay, now I have to prove something to myself. How do I run an efficient, one-location practice that does all things Shortly after that, I was, one of the first people to get involved in preferred practice orientations, which preferred provider orientations, which unfortunately drew the ire of almost every dentist in the southeastern suburbs. Something I got used to after a while, walking out of ADA meetings with pulling arrows out of my back and daggers out of my back.
Pretty harsh.
Pretty harsh. But I've got a nice collection of arrows and daggers in my drawer here. So that was that was fun. But it then sort of grew from there, and then I started working with other dentists and mentoring other people in basically communication skills, not so much in surgical techniques. Although I did show one particular dentist how to cut a flap, which I thought was amusing. But that's where it's been, that's where it's gone, and now I'm at the other end of all that, talking to people I love like yourself and your dear husband, and enjoying the so-called fruits of the labour. Yeah.
I love
but
it.
now I want to get back into helping other people in some sort of way or fashion. Yeah.
And just to give everyone an idea of East Bentleigh Dental Group, before we move into your mentorship and the lessons that you've got to share.
So East Bentleigh Dental Group started on the 8th of February 1976. How it happened was that on the 24th of December of the previous year, I went out to East Bentleigh to see an elderly dentist who had decided he'd had enough of being a dentist, and I went in there to see him, and I said, hello, Dr. Laurie Gajira. I said, I've been sent out here by a dental company that no longer exists called Flavel Glanfield. They said, you want to sell? He said, yes. He said, I want $13,000, no arguments. I said, I don't have $13,000. He said, well, get out. So what are you going to do? He said, on the 25th of December, I'm going to put the key in the door, lock the door, walk downstairs, throw the key in the gutter and go home. I said, okay, well, I'll sit in the gutter and wait for you. He said, oh, they're going to be a smart aleck, eh? Okay, the price just went up to $15,000. Needless to say, I had to come up with a good story, went to my bank manager, Mr. Ern Thomas, rest in peace. I said, I need $15,000 to buy a dental practice. He said, well, okay, I'll give you the money, but I want it paid back within 3 months. I said, 3 months? What? Okay, anyway, I started there on that day. Within 3 months, I needed to hire another dentist, so I hired a young dentist from the school dental service to come and help me 2 days a week and Saturday mornings. By the end of June of that year, I needed another dentist, so I hired a young lady dentist from Adelaide to come and help me. But now we'd run out of space. So what I had to do then was extend the building back over the chemist, which was underneath me. So we extended back 3 rooms and we put in another 3 surgeries. In the second of those years, I hired another 2 dentists, both reasonably good graduates. I won't mention names because some of them are big names in dentistry around Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane at the moment, but that's okay. I wish them well. And then what happened was it grew from 3 dentists to 4 to 6 to 8. And as it is now, we have, I think, 14 dental personnel in there, including hygienists and therapists and office personnel and nursing assistants, etc. We also we morphed into another group, which we became an anaesthetic type group. So East Bentleigh Dental Group every week now runs general anaesthesia, which is nothing new. A lot of practices are doing that now downstairs. But these are some of the innovations that I think I brought in because it seemed to be that nobody else was doing it as far as I could see. And that became that. So currently the current structure of East Bentleigh Dental Group is there are some individual practitioners, I think 10 or 11. I should have looked this up, shouldn't I? I think there are 14, and that includes some of the auxiliary personnel. I think we have a staff at last count of about 30 or 32 people, so it's quite a big organisation. That's its current situation, and it's still plugging along, albeit a little bit more slowly at the moment for various reasons, but it's still going along quite nicely. We market, of course. We do radio advertising. Sorry to interrupt you, Julie. We're on the radio for 4 or 5 years on Gold FM, and you used to hear, "Hi there, Dr Harry Marget here from East Bentleigh Dental Group."
I still come across your ads.
Yeah, and most people can remember the whisper. EBDG, the dentist. So we wrote all that stuff ourselves, and we were very great. I have a wonderful manageress who comes up with some of these ideas as well, and it's fun doing them and recording them and having fun with it. It's really funny when you walk into a supermarket here in Brighton and the girl behind the counter says, "I know your face." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "No, I know your voice." I said, you know my voice? She said, yeah. You're the guy, the dentist on the radio. I said, how do you know my face? She said, I took a guess.
That's just so good. That's so good.
But
So East Bentleigh Dental Group has, that's another entity, business entity that you've built up to be numerous surgeries, highly successful, employing lots of people over a long period of time, providing great opportunities for patients and employees as well. And it does attribute a lot of its success in that your approach was around business rather than just seeing it as the narrow field of dentistry. And it kind of what I've been thinking about is something else that Charles says, that if you want a different level of success, you've got to do things that are outside what the norm are doing. And
correct.
certainly that was you from day one.
Yeah, no, thank you for that lovely compliment, Julie. It was actually something that I can attribute to my late father, who was an immigrant into this beautiful country from war-torn Europe, as Charles's family had been. And one of the things he said when he was running his small business in Adelaide, he was running a small milk bar type delicatessen cafe. He would always say, you need to offer the customers just something a little bit extra. I said, like what? He said, well, don't offer them just a normal cup of coffee. See if you can offer them something with a biscuit or a slice of cake or something like that. Of course, European tradition, you can't have coffee without cake. So we started doing that. So I tried to do much the same with East Bentleigh and how it approached things. I tried to give people something else to look forward to. So those people that do know that I love to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke, and I think trying to make things that are a bit lighter and a bit funnier, just help people see things in a different light. And of course, dentistry being what it is, people approach it with some trepidation. But I'm happy to say, from some of the Google reviews I've been reading, that people finally got the idea. And of course, you have to be so careful today what you say and what you don't say, and what could be implied and what might be said, and it might have been misread or whatever. But I try to keep most of the humour, reasonably blasé, just silly little things like what do you call 1,000 rabbits walking backwards in a straight line? A receding hairline,
You are a very good joke teller, I've got to say. They come out thick and fast.
Yeah, well, that's, again, I attribute that. I was very lucky because my acting coach, when I came to Melbourne, said that one of the things you need to be dramatic with humour and levity, etc. It's a bit like, imagine, Julie, if you can, that you're walking down Collins Street at the peak of the Christmas shopping rush, and all of a sudden you hear someone from the back of the crowd going, "A horse! A horse! My kingdom for a horse!" And you turn around and you're expecting to see Richard III, and you see Harry Marget I going, "Sorry, did I say something wrong?"
Oh, it's just marvellous. So where are you at in your career now? Are you still practicing dentistry? And what's the next kind of phase that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that. Am I still practicing? No, I'm actually pretty good at it now. No, I'm kidding. I'm still doing 1 or 2 days a week. I've sort of reduced it to 1 day a week at the moment to try and spread the workload around with everybody else. I'm not really wanting to be too much more clinical. I think those days are well and truly behind me. I should say, Julie, and I think I've mentioned this to you privately, but I hope we can say it on the podcast, that actually when I enrolled to do dentistry, I actually didn't want to be a dentist. I actually thought I'd enrolled to be a general practitioner doctor. But when I got the paperwork back, they said, no, you stood in the wrong queue. You signed up for dentistry. So I thought, oh, well, to hell with it.
Go with the flow.
Yeah. But as I tell a lot of the people that I mentor, I'm not really much about the clinical side. I mean, it's an essential part of what we do. But what I really want to do is help people understand the business, the acumen that goes with trying to be in this business and see it as a professional business, but make it into a business that meets and pays dividends, both in terms of your happiness and your personal security. So my goal going forward will be to try and help people, be they young or old, try and understand where they fit into this process of professional life, both in whatever it be, medicine or dentistry or chemistry or pharmacy or law or whatever. And it's really strange, the number of people that come and see me, and I don't know whether this is the right venue to discuss this, but I mean, I have people come and see me from all walks of life, and I mean some of the seedier side of life. They want to talk about, oh, well, I'm in this business. I said, gee, how are things going? They said, fantastic, I said, well, being in that sort of business, I might understand. We'll leave it at that. Okay.
And this is one of the complaints that you do get, or that you do hear, new grads coming out of university and saying, oh, we were taught dentistry, we were never taught the business side of dentistry. But, you got to do an MBA to learn the business side of dentistry. But you have developed this awareness, this knowledge, this experience, but you've also, because of your ability to think differently about things and apply outside concepts into the business of dentistry, there is a way to become quite business-minded with your own dentistry.
Absolutely. And I love the way you express these things, because you do it simply and quickly in a very few words. It's to the point. What has happened is that, and I can recite over and over again verbatim from all the young dentists that I've met, from as far north as James Cook University to all across the way in the West and even in New Zealand. They come out with a process. I know how to look at a mouth and teeth and work out what needs to be done. But then I say, well, what about the person that's connected to the mouth and the teeth? Do you understand what needs to happen with them so that they understand what your process is? And when we get back to the business side of dentistry, and people come to me, and I had a dentist ring me this morning and say, oh, I may need to talk to you about getting some help. I said, like, with what? Well, I'm busy. I said, well, that's great. I said, are you making money? And they said, well, there's money in the bank. I said, oh, I see, okay. I said, what does your P&L look like? And they said, what? I said, your P&L. What's that? You don't know what a P&L is? Is it a drink? I said, no, it's not a drink. No, it's not a drink. It's called your profit and loss statement. Oh, that's for the accountant. See, there's the dilemma, Julie. That's the dilemma. People come into this game, they have no idea of the dollars and cents of it. They have absolutely no idea. And when you make suggestions, as a dear colleague, friend of mine, a wonderful man in dentistry, David Penn, said some 25 years ago, when he suggested that he could offer dentists, Southern Cross Dental Laboratories, which would offer high-quality crown and bridge work at a fraction of what we were paying, and he and everybody else that got connected to it were soundly condemned until everybody started using it and finding out it was great and it cost less and it worked very well. So that's when dentists finally saw the shutters went off and they could start to understand the dollars and cents and the pounds, shillings and pence of how dentistry needed to be measured and accounted for in terms of cost and profit and loss. But until that time, very few people did. I mean, I used to walk into practices where people were basically down to the skin of their teeth, working frenetically about doing things and just getting nowhere. So the understanding of the business side of it is the key, and that's what people like yourself and of course your beautiful husband are able to do so well, and I'm hoping that I can contribute in that some small way to that as well.
Absolutely. And, one of the areas to become very aware of as a dentist is that you have a finite number of hours and years to be productive and days of the year to be productive. And so that by itself, just that one concept, helps make you realize the need to start thinking a little bit laterally and outside the box. Don't just think about what you're capable of, but think about what the extension of you in terms of other people in the space around you is capable of as well.
Correct. I mean, you know yourself, because you were managing practices for a long, long time. You could see that firsthand. And I'm sure it became clearly obvious to you too at the time when you had those dentists in your practices that they didn't understand the costs and the methods of invoicing and controlling things at any stage. It's always been intriguing to me that people who are so high functioning, I mean, most dentists, to get through the dental course, you have to be high functioning individuals, how they can go through that process without understanding the pounds, shillings and pence of what they're doing. But it seems as though it's almost like it's too hard. It's got to be over there, not for me. I mean, that's why I think the corporates have done so extremely well by just saying to dentists, well, you let us worry about the dollars and cents. You just go to work and do it. We'll control everything else. I mean, fantastic. I've seen so many of these people come, and I give them their due. They do have a place. I think I've had lots of discussions with them about various things. But I mean, and I shouldn't boast, but I mean, they come to me with, "Oh, we'll do the marketing," and and I do it myself, so I know it's not an issue, and I have the people within my organisation that do the accounting. So I think they have a place, but I can understand why young dentists have gone there, because they didn't understand the processes, and the processes are how you make sure you go to work on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock on a Friday you come out, you've made some money, and you can afford to feed your family and pay your bills.
Yeah, that's it. And I agree with you. I think people sometimes look at the P&Ls, the balance sheets, the strategies, that space, the kind of more business financial space of a dental practice. And because it's an area where they don't feel a competency or natural gift for, they are not aware of it. Sometimes there's just a resistance to go down that path, and they have a look over here instead, where you go, something that I'm good at. Let me do this filling instead. But it's just a learning journey, like everything in life. It's just a learning journey. I mean, how many of us would love to play a musical instrument or speak another language, but we're not willing to go through the effort of learning the new thing? But when it's your livelihood, when it's your future, your children's future that could rely upon this, it's worth the effort.
I've got my guitar just over there. I've just been tuning it up.
That's very topical. I don't play an instrument.
No,
I wish I knew how to play an instrument.
Oh, well, you do. You actually do play an instrument. It's called the Julie Coves skill set.
You're good.
It's a clarinet, a piano, a guitar, and an oboe, all built into one.
You're very good.
The other thing that is starting to become very, very apparent to me is that the red tape in this industry has quadrupled and then quadrupled again. In the last few weeks, I've literally been bombarded every day by companies selling me AI-driven note-taking clinical recording devices. I mean, if I had one, I've had three. Today I had another one where they said, "Oh, no, look, we'll come in and show you. You just talk to the patient. The AI will be on. It'll record everything. It'll make all the notes for you. It'll make treatment planning suggestions for you. It'll print the x-rays, the caries, the treatment plan, the financial plan, the whole..." So the idea of the clinical coordinator is now starting to disappear. If you've got AI, certainly by one of these methods that I saw today and I heard on the weekend, it's actually quite funny. I was sitting in the Hamer Hall on Sunday. I was sitting next door to a very nice-looking lady and a very handsome-looking young man, and they started saying, "What do you?" And we just started talking. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm a dentist." He said, "Well," he said, "I work for a company that does AI health." I said, "What do you do?" And in no time at all, he showed me this particular company. They develop AI programs for dentists and doctors, and how many of them are being used. I came home and tried it that day. It was a wonderful concert, actually. It was the Chamber Orchestra of Victoria. They played some beautiful Beethoven. You'd love it. I must take you and Charles there one day.
Please.
You like classical music?
Love it.
Oh, good. Okay. So I thought you might. And so I tried it, but that's the other thing. You see, now we're being upscaled again from just being the dentist and talking to the client or the patient, as they would prefer to be known. Now we're having machines that are coming in and listening to us, taking down what we say, and reinterpreting it as a treatment plan or a written process for the patient to take home. Now, if that becomes law, and I can see it happening within the next 2 to 5 years, oh my goodness, what's next? It'll all be robotics. Yeah, it'll all be robotics. Yeah.
Yeah. And even from the perspective, I remember reading an article in one of the dental magazines about this dentist had gone overseas. I can't remember which country he went to, but he went to overseas to have a look what the technologies and medicaments were available over there, techniques that were available over there. And they were just trying things out. And he said, why can't we try things out here in Australia? The red tape is so thick that we are really restricting down the new and improved ways of doing dentistry because of the red tape.
It's true. It's absolutely true. It's getting worse. I mean, the recording of information, now, we used to record 3 or 4 lines, we did this filling on this tooth, we used this lining and this bond and this material. And now, you're writing an essay. And I hear of young dentists who finish work at 5 o'clock and don't get home till 7:30, 7:45 to their children because they're still at work writing notes, And we've automated ours to a degree. But I mean, imagine that you spend another 2.5 hours just writing up clinical notes. That's tough.
It's
That's
tough,
really
soul
tough.
destroying.
Yeah.
You do bring up the topic as well. I'm a huge user of AI myself in my work, and really concentrating on the benefits that it can deliver. But you've highlighted an important area. It circles back to your number one big thing that you want to make sure that people are aware of. That's so important is we have to use these sort of technologies, but not take the human element out of it. And so your communication skills, the words themselves are one thing. However, it's our ability to communicate that from one human being to another in an engaging way with the right environment that allows that person to be able to make effective choices.
That's the key. You can use the same sentence over and over again in 3 different voice inflections and get 3 different meanings. That's certainly when you're an actor and you're learning acting and they start talking to you about, what was the one? It's one phrase they said over and over again. Let me just see if I can recall it very quickly. I say what you do. 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 And you see where I'm coming from. There's so many inflections, so many different variations. There's another one which I can't do because we're on public airspace here. But it was always interesting. You could make something sound different or better by how you applied yourself, both dramatically and grammatically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the current kind of accepted percentage of the message that we relay to another human being, only 7% are the actual words. Everything else is how we say it and our body language as we say it.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting, when you look at some of the actors now, some of the modern actors, on TV, on film now, the guy that did that film with Lady Gaga, he showed in a number of because he does these little mini acting schools that you can log on to, and he shows how not using words, just by sitting still and using voice inflections or facial attitudes and body language, you can change the meaning of a sentence. And this is something which I've really tried to highlight when I talk to dentists and also doctors, mainly GPs in medicine. Don't sit back in a chair. Don't lean back in a chair looking as though you're falling asleep. Be engaged, sit forward, be there, be present, don't be argumentative, but be conscious of the fact that you are saying things which may zip through the subconscious or may lodge there and stay there for a few minutes. And make sure that what you are saying, if it's melodic, that's why Hungarian people get away with so much, because they talk like that. Don't tell Charles I said that. But it's true, when people speak Hungarian, it's sort of, you can get involved because you think this is nice, and then you find out they've been saying something insulting about your mother. No, I'm kidding.
It's interesting. I don't think this is an issue so much for dentists, but I was visiting my mum in hospital just earlier today, and she's going well, thank you. And I said, what did the doctors have to say yesterday? And she said, well, it was terrific because the minute the doctor came in, he sat down across from me, and so I then could start to listen more effectively. And just that one step, dentists are always sitting down with their patients generally anyway when they are going through treatment plans and et cetera. And I think that's it. We think we're effective communicators because words are coming out of our mouth and we can hear other people. However, there is a skill set to communication, which we are either creating the environment where that person will be receptive to what we have to say, or there's all these blocks in place. And the problem is, we never get that indication that we're not being effective at it. The other person, nice and polite, do you understand? Yes, doctor, I understand. And they walk away quietly, but they wouldn't be able to relay what was just said to them to anybody.
No, I hear you. That's the dilemma that you face in this space, in this communication space, is how do you make sure the person you're talking to is processing what you want to say as you want it said. I often think to myself that I've got a little teleprinter up here sort of printing things out, and I'm saying them, and I'm thinking sometimes I stop and I look at who I'm talking to and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I better pull this out. Here, read this instead. But I think you know what I mean. You can talk, and sometimes the words just go zip like that, and sometimes they go boing like that, and then you get it.
Yeah,
big difference.
And so it's going to be exciting because I'm going to be getting you back on for a series of podcast episodes where we can go deeper into specific areas that you think are very important. And of course, the earlier in our careers you're aware of this, new grads, for example, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there are 6 or 7 topics that I've got tucked away, leading off with communication, secondarily selling and marketing skills. 3, are you an advertiser or are you a seller? 4, how do you talk to staff? How do you get staff to come on board with you? 5, what does it mean to grow a business and how do you grow the business exponentially? And of course, 6 and 7, do you sell? Do you market? Do you continue growing? Do you build greenfields? There are lots and lots of topics that I want to get through because I think this is the time when people are looking around at different alternatives.
Yeah, I think so too. And certainly with some of the conversations that you see online in all these Facebook groups and forums and things like that, people are far more aware of the importance of understanding this side of things. Before we wind up for today's, we're going to plan our next session straight away. I want to get you back in as soon as possible.
Thank you.
One question I wanted to ask, because you seem like a person that is very open to the self-awareness journey that life offers up to us. And that self-awareness journey, I feel like naturally ties into becoming a better communicator and better team motivator and, you know, being able to engage with the patients, etc. What has that self-awareness journey, what's the level of importance of that these young new grads, for example, or people new to business, because I tell you what, owning a business is a self-awareness journey in itself. How important is it to be open to that space?
Julie, there is nothing more important. That is the single most important space you have to have, not only to be in that journey in business or in dentistry or whatever, but as a person, as a private person, as you know. Charles, of course, expresses this week on, week out in his own podcast. For me, the self-awareness journey began very, very quickly in about 1979, when, looking for some sort of message, I decided to go and get involved in a meditation class here in Melbourne, which very quickly took me down another couple of pathways and finally ended up at a place where they said, look, really to get hold of this, you need to go to India and go to an ashram and spend 2 or 3 weeks there doing that. Now, everybody has their own method of self-awareness, and I'm not advocating this one as opposed to another because I've done this journey many times with different people in Japan and in India and America and even with a North American Indian in his teepee. But what I found on that journey was that when you suddenly come face to face with the ethos of who you are, deep, deep down, underneath the skin, whether or not you've endured, whether you've been a child of Holocaust survivors, whether your parents came from Europe, whether you've been an Australian citizen who's witnessed things that they didn't need to witness, no matter what it is, so long as whatever journey you've been on, whatever lessons have come about, it makes you suddenly self-aware. That's what happened to me. Because coming back from India, after I lost nearly 16.5 kilos from the food that I was eating, came back looking like a stick, and my mother said to me, you better come over for dinner, you know, and Hungarian food, you know, lots of bread and chirka paprikash, etc. Yeah. So the self-awareness, that's what it is. And I continue to do that. And I continue to do it through my association with lovely people like yourself and your husband and other people who are involved in this. I still spend a lot of time looking and researching these journeys. I read a lot of books on this sort of thing, trying to find that special spark. And I come close to it. I hope I never actually get there because then I won't know what to do with myself, which is sort of what it is like now. But I'm getting there, and I think you highlighted something which all of us, instead of paying lip service to it, we actually have to go and do it. And sometimes it might mean, you know what, sitting in an ice bath and just saying, okay, how long can I withstand this? Or maybe just standing outside at night time looking up at the stars and going, man, I'm just one little being in this whole cosmos, and yet I know where I am. It's the most important thing. There's nothing more important.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. And I love that journey that you've taken yourself on to get different perspectives that are completely outside of your own realm and reality, because that's required as well. The only way we can think differently sometimes is to get the inspiration from the things around us.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting. Certainly when I was in North America, and it was actually in the year 2000. I was out in the Mojave Desert, and I've been invited to this North American Indians teepee to smoke the peace pipe. Well, you know what's in the peace pipe, don't you? Yeah. And then they said, maybe we should stop there.
No, but you're speaking about an interesting space, though, because Charles is involved in Mind Medicine Australia, and the influence now of psychedelics and psychiatric therapies for depression, eating disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder. They're getting magnificent results, and so yet again, these more like kind of long-standing, authentic cultural spaces, they had the answers a long time ago.
Yeah, they did. Well, it was good because I came out of that. They asked me to do this walk on the Firestones. I wasn't really keen on that, but somehow managed to get a couple of steps through it. Then I got off and had a couple of blisters, which I didn't enjoy. But no, look, whatever it does, whatever you can do to get that self-awareness, it's critical to improving your life and what you do with your life going forward. But you guys know that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for today. I'm looking forward to the next number of sessions, and the audience is going to be delighted with the amount of direction you're going to be able to provide. And I just encourage everyone to start moving into every day with that open mind. I wonder how things could improve. I wonder what's around the corner. And that kind of that thought that came from Tony Robbins, which I was reminded about this morning, and I've been moving through the whole of today with this thought that the universe is happening for me, the universe is happening for us, not against us. So stop looking at these barriers or humps in the road as things to stop you from being successful. Look at all of these opportunities, such as Harry Marget's lovely voice in your ears today, as an opportunity of evidence that the universe is happening for us and for all of our thriving futures in dentistry moving forward. It is a changing space that requires different ways of thinking about it to really sap that energy out of it.
Absolutely. You're a beautiful person, Julie. I love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really love it.
Likewise, Harry. I look forward to next time. Thank you so much
Me
for
too.
today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this podcast, then I encourage you to head over to Amina and my website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. You will find all the information that you need if you would like to gain our assistance in helping you and your team achieve great success. We've got online courses, consulting programs, the club membership. We also have a whole bunch of tools and resources that are available for free that will help you achieve your practice goals. If you would like to find out more, you can also email us directly at info@dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Thanks so much for listening.